I do think those are fun scenarios when people are starting from scratch. 'Cause every time people are like, look, we just want to get it done the right way up front and not have all of the, shelfware and other things that were happening in our old, whatever that prior experience was.
Welcome to OGGN Pitch. We have another great show for you today. Our guests today are EAG. We've got Elizabeth Gerbel, the founder and CEO, and we've got Chris Petropulos, the VP of Consulting. Standard question, what do you do? How do you help your customers?
Yeah, so we focus on upstream, midstream, renewables, energy adjacent companies, and we help them in a variety of ways. We work with them from IT consulting, which Chris is responsible for. We also have back office outsourcing, so helping them with all of their administrative, accounting, land, production. And then we also have an MSP for IT outsourcing, so help desk, cyber, networking, all of that.
Okay, and so really that's kind of almost soup to nuts. The systems, the process, the back office, that if somebody was starting a company, they could use all of those services to get their company off the ground.
That's exactly right. I was talking to a guy who's starting a non-op oil and gas company, and he's like, look, can you help me set everything up? We may take it in-house at some point, but right now it's me and ideas and potential assets. So yeah, that's what we do.
So that was one thing I was curious about. I didn't think we would get into that. I'm going to go off on a quick tangent here. So you do have customers that, they're literally just starting their company, and you're like, okay, I can do all these things for you. So all they have to do is focus on building the actual business.
Yes, we oftentimes have companies call us, the CFOs typically, and tell us, hey, we're thinking we're going to close on this asset. We have nothing. We have 5 guys, office space, and right now we're managing stuff on QuickBooks. And we help them take it from there, get all their systems selected, implemented, and going.
Okay. So then that's probably a special case. It isn't your constant...
We do a lot of it, actually. You'd be surprised. Yeah.
Okay, well, then we'll probably dig into that a little more, because I want to make sure I get the... So for established companies, are they more likely to use consulting, more likely to use... what tends to be... if you're an established company, you have staff and all of that, what do you tend to pitch to them?
Typically, it's consulting, but we also have companies that are interested in, we hear, hey, if I'm tired of hiring more revenue people, can you come in and start filling those seats? And as people leave, you just basically take over that department. And so we'll do that. One of our newer products that we're actually providing to customers is around AI and process automation, taking land documents, running them through AI, extracting information, but also title documents and generating the burden-based division of interests that are needed in order to pay people correctly. And so established companies look at us from those 2 perspectives, plus staff augmentation and helping them where they have gaps in their back office.
So let's kind of start drilling into the consulting side and the software and the process. So are y'all like a VAR? Are you reselling software, or do you just...
No, we try to stay agnostic. The only product we resell is M-Files for document management and workflow, and that's because we use it internally for our outsourcing. It's part of our SOC controls. But no, we try to stay agnostic. We keep up with all of the different systems, their development roadmaps and provide advice to people on what's the best solution for them.
Okay. So then there's a lot of well-known systems out there that oil and gas uses. So, and one of the things on your website, it talks about we hire people with oil and gas expertise because that is your niche. That's who you're targeting. So if you're looking for do you have people who like know inertia, know quorum, and all of that? Can you kind of talk about what your team looks like?
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, our team's pretty experienced across different systems. And what we're looking for are resources and candidates that have either used it in the past, implemented it in the past. It just depends. We don't go and take people from these software vendors, but they may move into industry and want to get into consulting after that. So we really do focus in on what is that experience they have, because the key is when we're doing these implementations or software selections or system optimization, you don't want them learning on the job. They need to bring that experience, and that's what we bring to our clients.
Okay. And roughly how many people are
consulting? We're at about 30 people right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so overall, we have probably about 20 contractors right now and 140-ish people total.
Okay.
Yeah, and so Chris has the true consultants, the business analysts, and the technical resources who do a lot of the conversion. And then we have another team that specializes in process automation that's actually managed by one of our other vice presidents. And they also handle app support. So we get calls after we go live with systems saying, hey, I need part-time assistance to keep this system running. And so we'll provide that part-time assistance.
And this is just something I'm curious about. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but in a lot of software, they're selling it through a channel, through a VAR. And so that VAR is the vendor of record for the software. And then when y'all come in, do you sometimes take over that role, or does the VAR continue to be in play, but you're now providing a different suite of services?
Right now, the vendors we work with really don't use VARs that much. So it's pretty much direct with the software company. Right now we're doing a software evaluation, and one of the products we're looking at is like IBM Maximo. So they do use VARs, and they're very upfront about it. But while we're doing the evaluation, we're typically talking directly still with the software company. And as we get closer to determining who's going to win, then they will say, well, either they don't use VARs and they'll say, here are the system integrators, that we recommend, because we'd like to take a best athletes approach is what I call it. Like, we want to implement these fast and well.
Right.
So sometimes we know the systems really well and we're that system integrator, but other times we partner with VARs or other system integrators to get it done.
Okay. And so really there's a myriad of ways you could play these things together, that certain pieces of software you could lead the implementation and do the configuration and all that. Other one, you might lead it, but the VAR is doing the config. And
we also partner with the software vendors too and their implementation team. So it is really system by system what works best, and depending on availability of resources and the timeline that the client has to work against, how are we going to get it done?
Okay. So let's kind of, I have kind of two basic scenarios that I want to talk through. I'll give you both of them and y'all can decide which one you want to talk about first. So let's assume it's an upstream company. And so one scenario is, they've been around a while. They have one of the common systems you would expect, but they're unhappy. Their production accounting takes too long, or it's not accurate. So that's one scenario of how would you come in there. The other scenario we've kind of started to touch on is I'm new. I don't have the systems, but I've now grown enough where I need to pick. So whichever one y'all want to start with, I kind of want to drill into those two kind of scenarios because
Yeah.
those are very common ones that the audience would have to deal with.
Chris, do you want to start with the one they're unhappy with the system?
Yeah, the biggest thing with that is really understanding what they're unhappy with. And before you just jump into a software evaluation and move systems, maybe it is just understanding how that system was set up and configured, what processes they're using today. Because earlier we talked about the people, the processes, the technology. So before you jump into it's just strictly the software, the technology, we need to move it, it's bad. It may not be. It just may be inefficient systems. So we understand that, help them figure that piece out. Once we get to that point, and if it is really, truly, they're just unhappy with the system for whatever reason, like Liz said, we're very agnostic. We gather these business requirements, and then we'll go out and we'll help them talk to different vendors that are going to meet, software vendors that would meet their needs, price point range, different tiers, whatever that may be. And then we'll help them score it, work through the demos, etc., and then move them into an implementation.
Okay, so if I was a client in this scenario, and so you're going to come in and do this initial assessment, I mean, what does that look like? I mean, what kind of consultant is it? How long? And I know it can vary by the size of company, but just notionally, what would I as a customer expect you to kind of propose?
Yep. So it's a very experienced client or person that we have, a resource, has done it before, understands that functional area. If we're talking, I think you said production accounting.
Yeah.
So if we use that, we would bring in, so you don't want to bring in somebody that doesn't know production accounting because they're not going to help drill in and ask the right questions. We also have our accelerators that we can use, that we've done multiple of these. But we come in, we talk to the management team, we understand what those issues are, and really we become part of their team. So we're helping and looking at it from different angles and asking those different questions. But what we're doing is bringing a lot of our accelerators and our knowledge and our experience. Timeline, something like that, it just depends. I mean, I could throw something out there. I mean, we've done them as quick as 3 weeks. We've done them as long as somebody wants to go 5 to 6 months of some type of advisory and evaluation. So it really does depend. And a lot of it is geared on when do they need to make that move on that system from we're giving a notice, we need to be off legacy system X by this time. That does generate timelines. And so we'll bring to them different options of how to get to that timeline. Anything is possible. It just depends on what it is that you want to do.
And so you're mentioning accelerators that y'all have. So what's a more detailed example of using an accelerator?
I would say, so some of our accelerators, we have a very extensive and exhaustive business requirements list. So we've done these a lot. And those business requirements, what you don't want to do is come in and say, tell me your problems, or what are you looking for? We have our list, and what we're doing is we're using that to help them really also drive additional questions. You don't want to get caught up in what's the typical business requirements. You want to really drive in and dive into what it is that's very specific to them, making sure that when you're bringing all of these different vendors together for a demonstration, that we are giving them those options. And that's a big piece. Those accelerators, that extensive list of accelerators, cross-functional areas, we're not talking 10, 20 questions or requirements. We're talking hundreds, because we've taken these over 22 years of doing this. You don't just throw it away and restart. We're not restarting. Right. We're building on using our methodology.
And I would say, too, that experience of our team is an accelerator, because I, for example, was part of a project many years ago, and, they were telling us, well, the system doesn't do this. And I'm like, of course it does. Like, what's going on? So they gave me access to a sandbox, full access, and we were able to get that process to work. It turned out that it was the way they set up their security that it had disconnected the process. And so I think sometimes we just hear things and we know that doesn't sound right. And so getting back to what Chris is saying is that, that the system hasn't been set up right, upgraded, not all the modules are in play. Like, we really try to help them maximize the investment they've already made before we jump to, let's go look at new software, because that's a big change management plus cost
and
investment.
and risk. Just
Yep.
Yeah.
anytime you're doing a major system, everybody knows whether it's oil and gas software or ERP software, the projects, they do not have a 100% success rate
That's right.
by any stretch of the imagination. So one thing you're saying is something that resonates with me, because I've done a lot of software selections in my consulting career, and often I get asked, well, what's the best piece of software? And I'm like, look, there is no best piece of software. We're going to bring to the table all these software that work. They all work.
Right.
They do what they were designed to do. Thousands of customers use the software. It works. That doesn't mean it's the right fit for you.
That's right.
And
Right.
so that's part of that process. So just to kind of continue drilling in and helping the audience understand that statement of work. So, well, let me just put it on the table. I have a pet peeve lately that, to me, in the last 3 years, the SOWs that I see from vendors, they're just getting worse. They're not specific. They don't actually say what's going to happen and what's going to get done. They're just spitting out canned stuff, and I personally find it frustrating. So when you go into a client, you don't exactly know what the problem is. You got to do an assessment. So now you're going to have am I going to get a fixed bid statement of work? Am I going to get a time and materials statement of work? What is that going to look like, so that as a customer, I'm like, okay, I'm going to pay these guys to come in and do a 2-month assessment. How do I know what I'm going to get? So walk me through what that looks like.
So typically
This is her pet peeve, by the way. So,
You and I are on the same page.
actually, because I am the CEO, I hire consultants.
Of course,
and I
yeah.
get so frustrated with my own kind, as to say. But so the way we break down our statements of work, especially when we're doing consulting work, is it's very specific on what the scope is. Like, what are the functional areas we're dealing with? What are the technologies we're dealing with? We really try to get it as granular as possible based on what we know, and we'll put TBD or things like
Sure.
that where we don't know. Then we go into the next section of what are our activities. What are we responsible for? What is the client responsible for? If there's a third party involved, we'll even build out a RACI chart showing who's responsible, accountable, consulted on each of the activities that we're working on. So it's very clear that we're not overlapping each other. And then we're very clear on the deliverables. And we do a deliverable matrix as part of our deliverables, and that matrix lists all the deliverables that are in the statement of work, plus any that get thrown in as part of the project, because you only know what you know when you're selling. And sometimes people will be like, well, now that we're where we are, we don't want this one. So we'll say, taken out of scope, but we're going to add these other two. And so then we link everything together so that that is a package that gets handed off at the end of the project. And we provide samples and everything else prior to closing on the statement of work.
And so is it normally time and materials, fixed bid? What do you...
It can depend. Lately, we've had a lot of clients interested in the fixed bid, and so we'll do that. Oftentimes, we all agree that we don't really know what's going to come out of it. So we all agree that time and materials is the best answer. And sometimes we'll do time and materials not to exceed, which is, capping it. And we also provide weekly status reports that not only show how much we've already billed, but also how much we've worked that hasn't been billed, and what we're forecasting, so they can see exactly how all that lays out against the budget.
Okay.
I don't like answering questions about invoices, so we try to put as much into the project to avoid that as
You don't
possible.
enjoy getting the emails from accounts payable about what is this invoice?
It's usually not accounts payable. It's usually somebody above the person who actually hired us.
No, I've actually got this project I'm doing right now where we're getting these invoices that they're just not quite right. And the way the invoice is written is hard to detect. And so I'm actually having to personally really dig into these invoices to figure out whether they're right or not. And so, it would be nice. I always just like things to be a lot simpler. But,
Yeah. And we try. We make mistakes too.
Yeah.
So
So let's kind of pivot to the other scenario, which we kind of started out that, okay, they're an early stage company, they've started doing a bunch of stuff on Excel or whatever, and now they're like, okay, this is becoming real. I've got real stuff happening, and I'm going to need a piece of software now and I don't know what to pick. So how do y'all approach?
Yeah. So there's two types. There's the companies that had companies before, the management teams had companies before, and now they're just starting 2, 3, 4 iteration, third, fourth iteration of their company. And so they typically know what they want, but they may ask us questions like, hey, we picked this software 5 years ago. Has there been other things that have come on the market that we should consider? And we'll just give them casual advice on that kind of thing. Then there are the folks who came from large companies and the management team forms to acquire assets, and they've never had to build the full foundation, technical foundation of an organization. And so what we'll do is go through a list of all of the types of systems that they may want and give them options on, hey, you can buy a full-fledged system for like incident management. Or we can create, something that works within SharePoint or a system that you're going to own through Office 365. But you are going to need a reserve system, which they probably already have, Aries. But your G&G systems really are based on who you hire because people have preferences. So, and then we'll go through, what are the data exchanges and subscriptions that you want to go through? What is the drilling and completion software that you need? What are your options on production accounting, land? Are you going to be using brokers? How do you want to manage your documents? So we'll kind of go through all of those questions and tell them, based on the size and complexity of the assets you're looking at, these are the ones that I would consider. And then typically we do some rapid fire demos, see which ones they prefer, talk through what integration will look like, and rapidly get contracts ready to go and negotiated so that when they close, they can start just signing those contracts. Nothing usually happens until they close.
Okay. So people who know me, I'm not a high trust person in terms of I don't just automatically trust people. I always want stuff presented to me that I can look at and say, okay, yes, I can see that. But if I was and I came to you and said, look, I'm doing this company, I want you to understand what I'm doing and then give me a couple of options, but come with a strong recommendation. I mean, would you be able to do that and say, okay, we say this is what you should use, here's why. And so you could, from an accelerator standpoint, you could do that as a much faster selection because in effect I would, in that scenario, I would be asking you, I want you to apply your judgment.
Right.
I don't need you to quiz me with 10,000 questions and go through 4 demos of the same piece of software. So you could do a very quick process also.
Yes. And so we tie our recommendation to a year-over-year budget of what your software is going to cost, plus the implementation and stand-up fees and ongoing support, so that it's all known up front before anything gets signed.
So then if it was the scenario where actually I'm hiring you to be my back office, would you automatically have the system that you prefer because you're the outsource provider, or would you support 3 or 4 and I get a choice?
You get a choice.
Okay.
And we make recommendations based on the asset, not just
Right.
what we prefer.
Right. Correct.
So
Okay.
we are pretty agnostic on the outsourcing side too, except from an IT perspective. When we're hosting systems and things like that, we use Azure Cloud. But other than that, we're very open to what people want to use as their system.
Okay. And I mean, just philosophically, do you have a bias toward software as a service, to on-premise? I mean, do y'all?
There's pros and cons to each. So the software as a service or the vendor hosted, we just make sure that it's very clear how you're going to incorporate new assets, because you don't have access and you shouldn't have access to the this database. That erodes the SOC compliance for the software vendor. We don't see a lot of people trying to stay on-prem anymore. Most people have a hosted first philosophy, and unless it can't be hosted or there are latency issues, then we usually work with the software vendors and they host the software.
But you could host it yourself.
We do. We host periodically if the system has that option.
Okay. So philosophically, somebody could look at their company and for whatever reason, they just are averse to subscriptions and they'd rather buy a perpetual license. They could hire you to be, and they don't have an IT department, they could hire you to do it. But if they had an IT department, they could just host it themselves and you could help them.
Yeah, we help them set it all up and then answer
they,
questions.
They would do it and use their own IT department. Okay.
I do think those are fun scenarios when people are starting from scratch. 'Cause every time people are like, look, we just want to get it done the right way up front and not have all of the shelfware and other things that were happening in our old, whatever that prior experience was. And so it's fun to have those conversations too.
So one question, in my career, whenever I've hired, particularly IT managed service providers, one question I always ask is, tell me about when things did not work out. And it was a bad deal. It just didn't work out. So what's an example of when everybody's best efforts, it just did not work out? And what did y'all learn from that?
Yeah, I would say early on, we weren't using Azure Cloud, and so we had issues where the system would go down, and we just didn't have the control that we needed. So we had a lesson learned there. We consolidated everything to Azure Cloud, and if folks want to do something different, we'll help them, but if we're going to host it and we're responsible for it, then we use that platform. I think the other thing we learned is that some of these systems are extremely complicated, especially those that were developed 20, 30 years ago. So there's one that will not be named, but we realized that we should not be hosting it. And we actually called the vendor because just to run one instance of it required 13 servers. And we're like, we're not experts at this. We understand that the client prefers that we host it, but we're going to broker a deal to make this move back to your hosted environment because it's safer for everyone. You all have the skills to do that, and there's no point in us trying to gain expertise in that particular model. But overall, I think what we've learned is that we really have to educate our customers on how to be safe. If we're hosting, we're responsible, And so we work very hard to educate them on don't click the link.
Don't click the link.
That's right. Don't do it. Don't do it.
You don't get free.
But there's a document there.
It could be important.
I think it's an
Free.
invoice. I have to look at it.
Nothing's free. The gift card is not a thing. So we go through a lot of education on that, and we actually track. We run fake phishing events, and we track who's causing the problem because it's just painful when it happens. And while the intruder may not get all the way into the network, like we had an incident recently where all the board members got emails, and it was a phishing. They got into an email account. That email account then sent. So it's a constant challenge to stay on top of the threats, and AI is not making that any easier.
No, they're actually getting better. That's one thing I'm being much more alert, because the emails normally are so bad that it's just obvious this is fake. And I'm getting stuff now that it's like, oh wow, this is actually getting good. I've really got to pay attention.
Yeah, they can do voice too. I mean, they can do the voice piece too.
Yeah, so you have to really get a face-to-face meeting with somebody to make sure that it's the correct request. I was actually sitting behind my controller. We were working on something, and she's like, look at this. I just got an email that you're in a meeting, and you absolutely need me to make this payment ASAP. I go, it's unfortunate that I'm meeting with you.
If only
That's right.
once they hack your phone, then they'll know exactly where you're at. And
They can track me.
That's right. Track the little dot.
So let's kind of shift to another topic that's highlighted on your website: merger acquisition, divestiture. So let's assume I'm a fairly mature company, but now I'm going to buy some more assets. So what is your range of services around helping with merger acquisition, divestiture?
Yeah, so a lot of what we do right now is we help with the data integration piece, and there's a lot that goes into that. We help our clients that are getting that asset, we help them understand what's in the PSA. So you get that information, we're coordinating, you got the divesting company, you've got the client, you've got some internal resources on their side, you've got on the divesting company, you've got different functional areas. So we're putting all those together. We're not only getting the data, you got to help the acquiring company understand those assets a little bit. Granted, they might not follow the same process that the divesting company did, but there are the wonky scenarios and the goofy one-offs and things like that that really need to be understood. So we help facilitate those discussions. We capture that information. And we're really working with getting that data from the divesting company seamlessly and quickly, and what that TSA period is, and it can be as short as 0 days.
It's my favorite TSA period.
It can vary, but you've got to get, how do you accelerate without disrupting operational business into the acquiring company's system? And then also not just getting it in, but that the processes work. So we do all of that from the beginning to the end. So we help them with that whole process.
And we have questionnaires that have been built out from all of the bizarre scenarios that we've seen over time. So it's really to get the acquiring SMEs with the divesting SMEs and facilitate really getting a deep understanding of what's required, the timing of events. We have calendars and all these things to show when things are going to stop and start. And I think that really helps visualize for everyone what's going on. And that also helps us know when we have to get data into the system. So it's a very collaborative and educational process.
Okay. But if I was the client, I would have my transition team. Y'all are mainly going to be helping with the process and the systems and the data. So if I needed HR compliance and stuff like that, then, and I don't have an HR person, then I need somebody, I need to find somebody to do that.
And so we might recommend somebody
Right.
who specializes in that, or they may hire these firms that do more of the business
Yep.
integration
Right.
and get the
Okay.
synergies from that perspective.
Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of curious how that fit together.
Yeah, we're typically one work stream within
Okay.
many work streams.
Yes.
Okay. From a geography that y'all support, I mean, U.S. mainly U.S., or you do projects around the world? How do you tend to approach that?
Yeah, we typically do U.S.-based companies, lower 48 specifically, but we have in the past worked with companies that were overseas, Azerbaijan, Canada, trying to think of a few others where we've been helping. Oh, Indonesia.
Yeah.
We did a big project in Indonesia, Romania.
Romania. Yeah.
So it just depends, but typically the work that we seek out is U.S. domestic.
Okay. And then the customers who are the best fit with you, I mean, what are there attributes about the customer, that the ones who are most successful, that either the way they're structured, their behavior, their culture is, what is an ideal customer for y'all?
I would say the biggest piece is just when they bring us in, the ideal customer would be the teamwork and the transparency and the communication. Like those three, we help make impossible possible, but the only way to do that with the different teams is to have that teamwork, that collaboration, that transparency. If you got those three, you can be pretty successful on what you need to do for a project.
And so if it wasn't going well in the beginning, how would you approach trying to work with the customer to
Like
say,
Elizabeth
we have
said,
a problem?
it is consistent communication. I mean, like I said, it's very transparent communication. Like, here's where we're running into problems. It could be, we're hearing this communication that's being pushed out, but it's opposite of what we're being told. Whatever it is, you want to really isolate it and hit that thing head on and try to clear it. And you get the right people in the room, and you just have those professional conversations of, this is what we need to do to get it fixed. Because the end goal, we all agreed, like the end goal is A. So we need to get to A, but to get to A, here's what we have to do.
Okay. So you mentioned the AI and the land management. It's branded on the website as New Era. So is that something y'all have put together where you've taken different products and said, okay, because we have this expertise that we can create something out of many pieces? So talk about that.
Yeah, so really it comes out of our back office outsourcing. We need to be more efficient. So we're constantly looking for ways to improve our processes. And these came out of process improvements that we were working on internally and tested internally. And once we felt like we had the high enough percentage of accuracy, then presented it to other clients.
Okay.
Now we have had clients who have asked us, hey, we have this problem. Can you come up with a solution? But most of what we're pushing out comes from our outsourcing group.
And so what is the AI doing in how y'all used it?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of conversations about all the amazing things that AI can do, but really what it is good at is the language. And so what we've been doing is building out processes and automating those processes, and it's really reading. The AI is reading something and pulling out the information that's needed to carry forward the processing. And I call it eliminating reading and typing, because it frustrates me as a CEO that at 2025, I am paying people to read a document and type information from that document into the system. That doesn't mean that I don't find value in somebody verifying all that information. But really, if I'm paying for resources who have strong oil and gas experience, then what I really need them to be doing is finding the anomalies and vetting the accuracy and taking it to a higher level. And when people say, well, I don't have time to do that, I'm so busy, it's like, are you reading and typing? And so we're still working through that. But I feel like, at this point, AI should be able to help us auto code AP invoices. And will it get to 90, 100%? Not yet. But that's, if we can get to 70, 80%, that's saving a lot of manual time, letting our folks really focus on their expertise. Some of it is just doing more integration in different ways. It's not AI. And some of it is really using Power Automate, or some of our clients use UiPath, but just automating processes so somebody isn't babysitting the process through the steps. So it's a number of things.
And in terms of the terminology and concepts that are embedded in all these documents, did y'all do the training, or okay, so you took some tool, whatever tool y'all chose, and then you actually went through your own process of we're going to teach the AI how to interpret.
It was not smart at first.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it took definite time, and then it builds on itself,
Right.
To the point where we're running documents that are in the longhand Declaration of Independence script from the 1800s, and it's 95% accurate.
Okay.
But it takes time to do that, and then there are nuances to oil and gas that so we identify where we have to continue to do that manual 5% review.
Okay. So let's kind of wrap up. The one thing that I found really interesting, because I've done consulting that is similar to some of what y'all do, and so not as detailed on oil and gas systems, but I've done lots of ERP selections and implementations and things like that throughout my industry career and consulting career. So I had a good feel for that. What to me is really interesting is you've packaged up the outsourcing so that you do have that opportunity to somebody starting a business, you can give them a really full solution. So this will be a kind of put you on the spot question. I'm curious, if somebody came to you and said, I need you to help me set this company up, I will give you equity to do that.
Yeah,
would you listen?
I would listen. I've never had that happen, but I would listen.
Yeah, definitely.
No, it's an interesting thought, because in a way, in that scenario, you're almost a whole
part
partner.
of the company.
You're a key part of the company, and they're going to run the business, but if you're taking good care of that. So, I was just kind of curious, because once I had thought about it before we got here, but as quick as we were into that conversation, and that you're regularly doing that. That's not an exception, that you're the full support for a company.
Right.
So that to me it's just a really interesting concept to be able to do that and bring that expertise to bear.
Yeah, we have a client that their corporate group is less than 20 people, and then we are everybody else.
Yep.
But we do not have any equity
I understand.
stake in their business. But it is an interesting model, and something we've considered, like getting an override or something like that. But
because they could get some lower upfront cost, and then on the back end you get a back end kicker, and that could be a good deal for everybody. Anything that we haven't covered that you're like, oh, he hasn't asked about this, I want to make sure we get this message out? Anything else before we fully wrap up?
No, just that we really consider ourselves to be part of the industry or a service provider, but I feel like we take a different approach to providing those services, and I don't expect people to just believe everything we say. So we do tie people into our network so they can understand how we're coming to our conclusions. And I just think all of us really love the industry and love what we do. So.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. And thank you for everybody who watches the show and give us any comments and questions about things that I should be asking or something that would be more interesting for us to talk about. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to OGGN, the world's largest and most listened to podcast network for the oil and energy industry. If you like this show, leave us a review and then go to OGGN.com to learn about all our other shows. And don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletter. This show has been a production of the Oil and Gas Global Network.